Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Quotes 365. Let's be real. Few things in life are as confusing or frustrating as trying to figure out why someone who clearly likes you chooses not to reach out. You feel the connection. You sense the interest. Yet there's no call, no message, no acknowledgement. You're left hanging in a space of uncertainty, overanalyzing every detail and wondering what it all means. It's natural to take silence personally. After all, when someone doesn't reach out, it's easy to believe it's because of something you said, something you did, or even something about who you are. But what if their silence has very little to do with you? What if the reasons they hold back are deeply tied to their own fears, doubts, or perceptions of relationships? Today, we're peeling back the layers to uncover the psychology behind their behavior. And by the end of this video, you'll have the clarity and tools to navigate these moments with grace and wisdom. We all know that sinking feeling when the silence stretches longer than expected. The waiting feels unbearable, and your mind fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. But here's a game-changing truth. Their decision not to contact you is often more about their internal struggles than anything you've done. It might be fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, or even fear of misreading your signals. It might be that they're overthinking, trapped in a cycle of self-doubt. Or maybe they're uncertain about timing, unsure of when or how to make their move. Understanding why someone holds back is incredibly powerful because it allows you to shift the narrative. Instead of obsessing over what you could have done differently, you can begin to see the bigger picture. You can realize that their silence doesn't define your worth or the strength of the connection you felt. This shift in perspective isn't just freeing, it's empowering. Let me ask you this. Have you ever stopped to consider how much of this confusion stems from a lack of clarity on both sides? You might be waiting for them to make the first move, while they're waiting for a signal from you. You're both caught in a dance of hesitation, each afraid of misstepping. But when you start to understand the psychological and emotional dynamics at play, you can move past that stalemate with confidence and composure. Now, let's ground ourselves in a Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This wisdom is at the heart of what we're exploring today. You can't control whether they contact you. You can't force someone to take action if they're not ready. But you can control how you interpret their behavior and how you respond to it. You can choose to stay anchored in your self-worth and let go of the urge to overanalyze their silence. Here's the thing. Waiting for someone to reach out can make you feel powerless. But when you understand the reasons behind their behavior, you reclaim that power. You stop seeing their silence as a rejection and start seeing it for what it really is. An insight into their fears, their thought patterns, or their emotional priorities. It's not about excusing their behavior, but about seeing the situation through a lens of understanding rather than self-doubt. As we go deeper into this video, we'll explore the subtle dynamics that shape why they hold back. From the fear of rejection to the power of absence, you'll learn how their internal world might be influencing their actions, or lack thereof, and how you can navigate these moments with patience and self-assurance. The goal isn't to fix them or to try to make them reach out. The goal is to understand, to grow, and to approach relationships with a sense of balance and emotional intelligence. Before we dive further, let's take a moment to reflect on a simple truth. Relationships, like life itself, are often messy and unpredictable. There's no formula, no one-size-fits-all approach. But there are patterns, psychological, emotional, and behavioral patterns that we can learn to recognize. By understanding these patterns, you can begin to navigate relationships with greater clarity and confidence. You stop reacting and start responding, rooted in your own values and self-worth. I know this isn't easy. It takes effort to let go of overthinking, to stop replaying every interaction in your mind, and to trust that the connection you felt was real, even if their silence makes you doubt it. But as the Stoics teach us, the greatest power lies in how we choose to respond. And when you choose to respond with wisdom and patience, you create space for something deeper, something more meaningful to unfold. Before we continue, I'd like to ask for a small favor. If you're finding value in this conversation, please take a moment to like this video. It's a small gesture that makes a big difference. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on future insights. Your support helps this community grow, and it means the world to me. So, are you ready to uncover the real reasons behind their silence? Stick around, because the insights we're about to explore might just change how you approach relationships forever. Let's get started. Number 1. The illusion of effortless attraction. All right, folks, let's start by unraveling a common misconception that keeps many people stuck in confusion: the idea that attraction should be effortless. This belief can lead to so much frustration when someone seems interested but doesn't take any action to reach out. Many of us have been taught to think that when someone is truly attracted to you, they'll naturally make a move, right? But here's the truth. That's rarely the case. Let me ask you this. How many times have you held back from reaching out to someone you liked because you assumed they should take the first step? That hesitation, born out of the myth that attraction takes care of itself, is one of the biggest reasons people miss out on connections. And it's not just you. It's a universal dynamic. They're sitting on their side of the fence thinking the exact same thing. If they're interested, they'll come to me. This illusion of effortless attraction stems from a misunderstanding about how human relationships work. While chemistry and mutual interest are essential, they're not enough by themselves to create a bond. Relationships require effort, vulnerability, and action. But here's where it gets tricky. Taking action requires emotional courage, and not everyone has that readily available. Some people hold back out of fear of rejection, while others simply don't know how to navigate the uncertainty of whether their feelings will be reciprocated. Now, let's bring this back to Stoicism. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in the context of relationships, this means shifting your focus from wondering why they're not reaching out to understanding what's really holding them back. The myth of effortless attraction can make people freeze up, convincing them that any effort to initiate contact might seem desperate or unwelcome. Here's the kicker. This hesitation often creates a feedback loop. You're waiting for them to reach out, and they're waiting for you. Both of you are stuck in this dance of silence, fueled by the belief that attraction alone should be enough. But when you understand that this myth is just that, a myth, you can approach the situation with a more realistic perspective. Think about it this way. Attraction might spark interest, but it's action that builds connection. Waiting for the other person to move first isn't just risky. It's a missed opportunity to show initiative and create something meaningful. This doesn't mean you should chase or pressure anyone, but it does mean being willing to take small, intentional steps to bridge the gap. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people who clearly like each other, but never communicate that interest. Both are waiting for a sign from the other person, interpreting the silence as disinterest. Over time, the connection fades, not because the feelings weren't there, but because no one was brave enough to break the silence. This is what the myth of effortless attraction does. It creates missed moments and unspoken regrets. But folks understanding this doesn't mean you need to carry the entire burden of building the connection. What it does mean is that you can stop overthinking their silence and start focusing on what you can control, your own actions and mindset. By showing up as your authentic self and being open to creating opportunities for connection, you break free from the constraints of this myth. Here's a practical takeaway. If you sense mutual interest, don't be afraid to make the first move. A simple message, a thoughtful gesture, or even just expressing your appreciation for them can go a long way in breaking the cycle of hesitation. It's not about being pushy. It's about showing that you value the potential connection enough to take action. At the same time, remember that not everyone will have the courage to meet you halfway. And that's okay. The goal isn't to force a response or prove anything. It's to align your actions with your values and intentions. When you operate from a place of confidence and clarity, you naturally attract people who appreciate and reciprocate that energy. To wrap this up, the myth of effortless attraction is just that, a myth. Real connections are built through intentional effort, mutual respect, and a willingness to take risks. By letting go of the idea that they should automatically reach out if they like you, you open the door to deeper understanding and more fulfilling relationships. Comment below, I take action. Let's affirm our commitment to breaking free from myths and creating meaningful connections. And folks, if this resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Next, we'll explore how fear of rejection plays into their hesitation. You don't want to miss this. Let's keep going. Number 2, the fear that holds them back. All right, folks, let's dive into one of the most paralyzing reasons why someone might not reach out, even when they really like you. Fear of rejection. It's something we've all felt at one point or another. The crushing weight of wondering, what if they don't feel the same way? Can stop even the most confident person in their tracks. But this fear isn't always as simple as it seems. There's often a deeper, more complex dynamic at play that we need to uncover. Think about this. Rejection doesn't just hurt. It challenges our sense of self. When someone likes you but doesn't reach out, it's often because they're not just afraid of being turned down. They're afraid of what that rejection might mean about their worth or desirability. It's not just the immediate no they fear, it's the echo of that no in their mind, replaying as self-doubt. This fear isn't limited to romantic relationships. It's rooted in human nature. From a young age, we're conditioned to avoid rejection because it feels like exclusion, like being left out of the group. And in relationships, this instinct runs even deeper. For some people, the mere thought of taking a risk, of making themselves vulnerable, feels unbearable. Now let's look at the other side of this. If you've ever waited for someone to reach out and felt frustrated by their silence, ask yourself, have you ever held back because you were afraid of putting yourself out there? That's the same fear they might be feeling. Understanding this doesn't make their hesitation less frustrating, but it does help you see it for what it is. A reflection of their inner battle, not a reflection of your worth. Fear of rejection also makes people hyper-aware of how their actions might be interpreted. They overthink every word, every gesture, trying to calculate the safest move. Ironically, this often leads to no action at all. They think, if I don't say anything, I can't get hurt. But in doing so, they miss the opportunity for connection. Here's an example. Imagine someone who's interested in you, but hesitates to send that first text. They might type out a message, read it over 10 times, and then delete it, convincing themselves it's not the right time. This isn't because they don't care. It's because they care so much that the stakes feel too high. They'd rather stay silent than risk saying the wrong thing. So how does this connect to Stoicism? The Stoics remind us that fear is often a distortion of reality. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In other words, the fear of rejection isn't about the rejection itself. It's about how much weight we give it. For someone holding back, their fear has likely grown out of proportion, overshadowing the potential reward of taking action. What does this mean for you? First, recognize that their fear isn't your responsibility to fix. You can't force someone to overcome their hesitations, and trying to do so often backfires. But what you can do is create an environment that feels safe and inviting. Sometimes, a little reassurance or openness on your part can help ease their fears. This doesn't mean chasing after them or taking on all the emotional labor. It means showing that you're approachable and interested without being overwhelming. At the same time, don't let their fear of rejection lead to self-doubt. Their hesitation says more about their inner struggles than it does about your value. When you understand this, you can approach the situation with compassion, both for them and for yourself. Here's a practical takeaway. The next time you sense someone holding back, try to shift the dynamic with a small, low-pressure gesture. It could be a kind word, a light-hearted comment, or even just making eye contact and smiling. These moments of warmth can help break the ice, showing them that the risk of reaching out isn't as daunting as they think. To wrap this up, fear of rejection is a powerful force, but it's not insurmountable. By understanding what might be holding them back, you can approach the situation with patience and empathy, without losing sight of your own worth. And remember, folks, fear is a reflection of their mindset, not your value. Comment below, "I choose courage." Let's affirm our commitment to understanding and growth in our relationships. And if this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next insight. We'll be uncovering how misinterpreted signals can create barriers to connection. Let's keep going! Number 3. Misunderstood signals and hidden intentions. All right, folks, let's talk about a common, yet often overlooked, reason why someone who likes you might not reach out. The signals you're sending might not be as clear as you think. Misunderstood signals can create a lot of confusion and, in some cases, stop them from taking action altogether. They may be interpreting your actions in ways you never intended, or perhaps they're overthinking the meaning behind every interaction. Think about this. How often do we assume we're being obvious about our interest, only to realize later that the other person had no idea? Attraction isn't always as straightforward as it seems. People process subtle cues like body language, tone, and even timing differently. What feels like a clear message to you might come across as ambiguous or even disinterested to them. Here's a scenario to consider. Imagine you're being friendly, maintaining eye contact, and engaging in light conversation. To you, it's an obvious show of interest. But to someone who's cautious or unsure, those same actions might seem like polite friendliness, nothing more. This gap in interpretation is where misunderstandings often arise. They might think, "I don't want to embarrass myself if I've misread their signals," so they choose to stay silent instead. Another layer to this is their past experiences. If someone has been burned by rejection before, or has dealt with mixed signals in previous relationships, they're likely to approach new connections with a heightened sense of caution. Even the most genuine actions on your part might be met with skepticism, not because of anything you've done, but because of the emotional baggage they're carrying. Let's add some Stoic wisdom here. Marcus Aurelius said, "You always own the option of having no opinion." There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you cannot control. This applies perfectly to misunderstood signals. While you can be mindful of how you communicate, You can't control how someone interprets your actions. The key is to focus on clarity and consistency without overthinking their reactions. So, what can you do about this? First, consider the way you're communicating your interest. Are you being clear and consistent? Or are you unintentionally sending mixed messages? For example, if you're warm and engaging in one interaction but distant or distracted in another, it might leave them unsure about where they stand with you. At the same time, remember that communication isn't just about what you say or do, it's also about how you listen. Sometimes, the best way to clarify a misunderstanding is to pay attention to their responses and adjust accordingly. If they seem hesitant or unsure, it might be an opportunity to be more explicit about your intentions. This doesn't mean laying everything on the table all at once, but rather finding small ways to show that you're genuinely interested. Now, let's flip the script for a moment. Have you ever been on the receiving end of unclear signals? It's frustrating, isn't it? You find yourself overanalyzing every text, every interaction, trying to figure out what they're thinking. That same frustration can be what's holding them back. They might be stuck in their own head, trying to decode your actions and second-guessing every move. Here's a practical takeaway. If you suspect your signals might be misunderstood, take a step back and simplify your approach. Be direct, but not overwhelming. For example, instead of relying solely on subtle hints, express your interest through genuine compliments or meaningful gestures. This doesn't just help them understand where you stand. It also makes them feel valued and appreciated. But folks, it's also important to know when to let go. If someone consistently misinterprets your signals, despite your best efforts to be clear, it might not be about the signals at all. It might be about their readiness for a connection. You can't force someone to see what they're not ready to acknowledge. What you can do is stay true to yourself and your intentions, knowing that the right people will meet you where you are. To wrap this up, misunderstood signals are often a reflection of both parties' experiences and perceptions. By being mindful of how you communicate and patient with how they respond, you can create a space for genuine understanding and connection. And remember, clarity and authenticity always shine brighter than any mixed message. Comment below, I choose clarity. Let's affirm our commitment to better communication and deeper connections. And if this insight resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. In the next section, we'll explore how self-worth and overthinking can create even more barriers to connection. Stick around, you don't want to miss this. Number 4. Overthinking and self-worth barriers. All right, folks. Let's take a closer look at something that holds many people back in their relationships: the complicated dynamic between overthinking and self-worth. These two forces can create a powerful barrier that stops someone from reaching out, even when they genuinely like you. It's not about their lack of feelings. It's about the inner dialogue that keeps them stuck. Think about it. How often do we overanalyze our own words and actions, replaying moments in our heads and questioning whether we said or did the right thing? Now imagine that same overthinking magnified by insecurity. For someone who already struggles with their self-worth, even the smallest interaction can feel loaded with potential for rejection or failure. They think, what if I reach out and they don't respond the way I hope? What if I'm not enough? When self-worth is shaky, overthinking becomes a constant loop. They might dwell on how you reacted in past conversations, looking for signs of approval or disinterest. They might obsess over the perfect way to approach you, only to convince themselves it's safer not to act at all. This internal struggle is exhausting and often leads to paralysis. No matter how much they like you, their doubts hold them back. Here's an important point. Overthinking isn't always obvious. Someone who seems confident and self-assured on the outside might still wrestle with a storm of insecurities on the inside. Their hesitation doesn't necessarily mean they don't value you. It often means they're trying to protect themselves from the possibility of rejection, even if that possibility is only in their head. Let's bring Stoicism into this conversation. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. For someone struggling with overthinking, this means learning to focus on their actions rather than the imagined consequences. But until they reach that level of self-awareness, their fears can dominate their behavior. So, how does this affect you? First, it's important to remember that their hesitation is about their internal battle, not your worth. It's easy to take their silence personally, but understanding the role of self-worth in their hesitation can help you approach the situation with compassion. Instead of seeing their lack of action as disinterest, consider that it might be their way of avoiding vulnerability. At the same time, this isn't an excuse for unhealthy dynamics. While you can empathize with their struggles, it's not your responsibility to fix their insecurities or pull them out of their overthinking spiral. Your role is to remain grounded in your own self-worth, creating a space where they feel safe to reach out if and when they're ready. Here's a practical step you can take. Provide reassurance through consistency. Overthinking thrives on uncertainty, so small acts of consistency, like responding thoughtfully or showing genuine interest, can help ease their doubts. These don't need to be grand gestures. Even subtle moments of kindness and attentiveness can make a difference. That said, there's a balance to strike. While it's helpful to show that you're approachable, it's equally important not to overextend yourself trying to accommodate their insecurities. If you're constantly walking on eggshells or feeling like you're the only one making an effort, it might be time to step back and evaluate whether the connection is mutual. Let's flip this for a moment. Have you ever been in their shoes? Have you ever liked someone but overthought every step, convincing yourself you weren't enough? It's a relatable feeling, isn't it? And that's why compassion matters. While you can't solve their inner struggles, you can approach the situation with an understanding that we're all navigating our own challenges. To wrap this up, overthinking and low self-worth are powerful barriers, but they don't have to define the relationship. By understanding these dynamics, you can approach the situation with patience and empathy, while also setting healthy boundaries for yourself. Remember, you can't control their inner world, but you can control how you respond to it. Comment below, I embrace clarity. Let's affirm our commitment to understanding and growing through life's complexities. And if this insight resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Next, we'll dive into the power of absence and how it shapes relationships in surprising ways. Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Number 5, the subtle power of absence. All right, folks, let's talk about a counterintuitive but incredibly powerful dynamic in relationships: the power of absence. It might seem strange to say that sometimes doing less can actually achieve more. But when someone pulls back or doesn't reach out, it can create a psychological space that amplifies their feelings toward you. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding the way human desire works. Absence has a unique way of magnifying presence. Think about it. When someone is constantly available, it's easy to take their attention for granted. But when there's a gap, a pause, or even silence, it creates an emotional void. That void invites curiosity and longing. The brain starts to fill in the blanks, often making the person's presence feel more significant than it might have seemed before. This isn't manipulation. It's a natural psychological response. When something or someone isn't immediately available, it becomes more valuable, Scarcity creates a sense of importance. The Stoics understood this well, often emphasizing the importance of letting go to gain clarity. As Marcus Aurelius put it, you will find rest from vain fancies if you perform every act in life as though it were your last. The idea here is simple. Sometimes, stepping back allows the other person to realize your worth in a way they couldn't see when you were always present. But folks, let's be clear. This doesn't mean you should intentionally ignore or distance yourself to manipulate someone's feelings. True absence works when it's authentic, not forced. For example, focusing on your own life, pursuing your passions, and being fully present in your own journey naturally creates a space that others can't help but notice. It's not about withholding your presence as a tactic. It's about valuing your time and energy enough to use it wisely. Here's where it gets interesting. Absence doesn't just create longing, it also gives the other person space to reflect on their feelings. When someone isn't constantly in front of you, it allows your mind to wander and replay the moments you've shared. Those memories often gain emotional weight, becoming more significant with time. The same is true for them. When you're not always there, they start to notice and appreciate the moments when you were. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever missed someone more deeply when they weren't around? That longing doesn't diminish the connection. It often strengthens it. Absence creates a contrast that makes presence feel even more meaningful. However, there's a delicate balance to this. Too much absence can create distance that's hard to bridge. If someone feels like you've disappeared completely or that you're uninterested, they might start to pull away emotionally. The key is to create space without closing the door. It's about being present enough to remind them of the connection while giving them room to value it. So how do you navigate this balance? Start by focusing on yourself. When you're confident, fulfilled, and living a life that excites you, your energy naturally becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those who are content within themselves. Absence, in this context, isn't about withholding. It's about being so engaged in your own life that your presence feels like a gift, not a given. At the same time, be mindful of how you re-enter the dynamic. If you've created space and they start to reach out, respond with warmth and authenticity. Let them see that your absence wasn't about creating distance, but about living fully. This approach reinforces the connection without making it feel forced. To wrap this up, the power of absence lies in its ability to create emotional clarity. It allows both you and the other person to reflect, recalibrate, and reconnect with greater intention. By understanding this dynamic and using it authentically, you can build a connection that's grounded in mutual respect and appreciation. Comment below, "I value my presence." Or let's affirm our commitment to self-worth and meaningful connections. And if this insight resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. In the next section, we'll uncover why emotional safety is a cornerstone of strong relationships. Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Number 6. Building a sense of emotional safety. All right, folks, let's talk about something that's often underestimated, but is absolutely crucial in relationships: emotional safety. No matter how much someone likes you, if they don't feel emotionally safe, they'll hesitate to reach out or fully invest in the connection. Emotional safety is the foundation that allows vulnerability, trust, and intimacy to flourish. Imagine this. You're walking across a shaky bridge. Every step feels uncertain, and your focus is entirely on not falling. In relationships, a lack of emotional safety feels just like that. Instead of stepping forward confidently, the person hesitates, overthinks, and doubts whether the connection is strong enough to support their feelings. For someone who values emotional safety, reaching out can feel like stepping onto that bridge. They might wonder, will I be judged? Will I be misunderstood? Will my feelings be reciprocated? If the answers to these questions aren't clear, they'll likely hold back. It's not that they don't care, it's that they're protecting themselves from potential pain. But emotional safety isn't just about avoiding pain. It's also about creating a space where both people feel seen, heard, and valued. For someone to feel safe enough to reach out, they need to trust that their emotions won't be dismissed or invalidated. This trust takes time to build. But once it's there, it becomes the anchor that holds the relationship steady. So how can you create this sense of emotional safety? Start by practicing active listening. When you're truly present and engaged in what the other person is saying, it signals that their thoughts and feelings matter to you. Simple gestures like maintaining eye contact, nodding, or repeating back what they've said can make a world of difference. Another key element is showing empathy. Empathy isn't about agreeing with everything they say. It's about understanding their perspective and validating their experiences. For example, if they share a fear or concern, resist the urge to dismiss it with phrases like, "Don't worry about that," or "You're overthinking it." Instead, acknowledge their feelings and offer support, saying something like, "I can see why that would make you feel unsure." Here's where Stoic philosophy comes in. Marcus Aurelius said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. This reminder encourages us to approach relationships with gratitude and intentionality. When you focus on creating emotional safety, you're not just building a connection, you're honoring the privilege of being a trusted presence in someone else's life. At the same time, emotional safety isn't one-sided. While it's important to create a safe space for them, you also need to ensure that your own emotional needs are being met. A healthy relationship is a two-way street where both people feel secure and supported. If you find yourself constantly giving without receiving, it might be time to reevaluate the balance in the relationship. One way to reinforce emotional safety is through consistency. Unpredictability can make someone feel uncertain or hesitant, while consistent actions build trust. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It simply means showing up in a way that aligns with your words and intentions. If you say you'll be there, be there. If you promise to support them, follow through. But folks, here's an important caveat. Emotional safety doesn't mean avoiding every difficult conversation or conflict. It's about creating a space where those conversations can happen without fear of judgment or rejection. In fact, addressing challenges openly and respectfully can strengthen the bond between you. To wrap this up, emotional safety is the invisible thread that holds relationships together. It's what allows someone to reach out without fear, to express their feelings without hesitation, and to trust that they'll be met with kindness and understanding. By focusing on this foundation, you create a connection that's not just strong, but deeply fulfilling. Comment below, "I choose safety." Let's affirm our commitment to building relationships rooted in trust and empathy. And if this insight resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Coming up next, we'll dive into the role of timing in relationships and why it matters more than you might think. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Number 7. Navigating the uncertainty of timing. All right, folks, let's dive into the final piece of this puzzle. Timing. Timing is one of the most overlooked but critical factors in why someone might hesitate to reach out, even if they like you. It's not always about their feelings. Sometimes it's about where they are in their life and whether they feel ready to engage in a meaningful connection. Timing isn't just about schedules or circumstances. It's deeply tied to emotional readiness. Imagine someone who's juggling personal challenges, career pressures, or unresolved issues from past relationships. Even if they feel a strong connection with you, they might question whether now is the right moment to pursue it. They could be thinking, "I don't want to mess this up by starting something when I'm not fully present." Here's where it gets tricky. You might interpret their hesitation as disinterest or even rejection, but in reality, they might be holding back because they care. They don't want to rush into something only to falter because the timing isn't right. This isn't about making excuses. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own pace and their own journey. The Stoics often remind us to approach life with patience and understanding. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" In relationships, this means resisting the urge to react impulsively when someone's actions or inactions don't align with our expectations. Instead, it's an opportunity to practice compassion and perspective, understanding that their timing doesn't diminish the connection you share. Let's consider an example. Imagine you've met someone who's just started a demanding new job or is dealing with a major life transition. They may feel that adding a relationship to the mix would be overwhelming, even if they're genuinely interested in you. Their silence isn't a reflection of their feelings. It's a reflection of their circumstances. By understanding this, you can approach the situation with more empathy and less frustration. That being said, it's important to balance understanding with self-respect. While it's okay to give someone space if the timing isn't right, it's also important to ensure that you're not putting your own needs on hold indefinitely. If they're consistently unavailable or unclear about their intentions, it might be worth having an honest conversation to clarify where you both stand. So how do you navigate this uncertainty? Start by focusing on what you can control, your own actions and mindset. Instead of waiting for their timing to align with yours, invest in your own growth and happiness. Pursue your passions, nurture your relationships, and live your life fully. This doesn't mean giving up on the connection. It means not letting it define your sense of fulfillment. At the same time, be open to the possibility that timing can change. Life is dynamic, and circumstances that feel insurmountable today might look very different tomorrow. By maintaining a sense of patience and understanding, you create a space for the connection to evolve naturally without forcing it. To wrap this up, timing is a delicate balance of readiness, circumstances, and intention. It's not always something you can control, but it's something you can navigate with grace and self-awareness. By understanding their perspective and honoring your own, you lay the foundation for a connection that's not just timely, but truly meaningful. And that's it, folks. Understanding why someone might not reach out, even if they like you, is a powerful step toward building stronger, more meaningful connections. Remember, it's not always about you. It's often about their own fears, timing, or personal struggles. The key is to stay grounded in your own worth while approaching the situation with patience and understanding. If this video gave you some clarity or made you think differently, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your insights and experiences. And before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a future video. Your support means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Thanks for watching, and as always, take care and stay true to yourself. Until next time.